Hi everyone. Thanks, Sudha. Welcome to WeeklyWed from Business School of AI. WeeklyWed is our happy place to share, learn, discuss, and explore. WeeklyWed occurs every Wednesday at 9 a.m. PT. I'm your host, Yashaswini Vishwanath, and you can call me Yash. I'm logging from Bangalore, India, and I would like to know where you're all coming from. Please type away your name and location in the chat. We would like to get to know you better. I work as a technical lead here, and I do some proof of concepts in emerging technologies, including AI, where I focus on responsible AI, and I'm pursuing my master's in artificial intelligence at RAISE. At WeeklyWed, currently we are running the learning pathway to AI, where we empower and enable our audience to break into AI or to explore AI much more. Generally, we host speakers from varied backgrounds working on AI and allied technologies. Today, we have we are here to learn about business cases of natural language processing. Just to give a gist, natural language processing, or NLP for short, is broadly defined as the automatic manipulation of natural language. That is what we speak or how we write in text. So if it is done by software, we say it is natural language processing. We have natural language understanding and natural language generation as part of it. Today we have Vlad Mysla, who is a senior technical product manager at AI at Cruise, who is bringing his rich technical experience from his previous engagement at Just Answers. So Just Answers is where members enjoy round-the-clock access to verified experts, including doctors, lawyers, and other professionals. So a hearty welcome to Vlad Mysla to WeeklyWed. Vlad, I would like to hear your journey in AI and NLP from a business point of view.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me today. Really glad to share some of the experience we faced with AI development in particular. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Vlad. I'm currently located in San Francisco. I am originally from Ukraine. I started my journey as a software engineer, and 6 years ago, I moved into product management. I was doing product marketing, customer acquisition, and then moved into tooling for, actually, first I moved into chatbot development and creating conversational experiences, and then creating tools to create those experiences and machine learning. I don't know how we were gonna do that. Do you want to hear something about our applications, or there are questions you want me to answer?
So Vlad, first of all, we would like to know how your career pivoted to AI. Did you study it from your bachelor's, or did you move into it at a later point of time in your career? What made you pick AI, and how did you transition into it? We would like to hear your story.
That's an interesting question. You know, I'm a big fan of automation. And, you know, you almost always can measure how much time are you saving and how much life you are getting back if you automate things. So I always like to measure things this way at every job I was working on and every project. And at some point you face that plateau where just this common solution like just programming is not solving those problems. Things where we have a lot of data, you need to process large volumes of data, need to discover patterns, or the opposite, ignore a little bit noise and see through the clutter. And that's when I saw that there is an opportunity to do something with AI and machine learning in particular. My first experience with AI I actually had when I was a student. I built my self-reinforcement learning model to solve a game by just trying different steps and back propagate all the signal if we win or not. I couldn't pass that very hard 81st level, and I solved it with machine learning. But later, I wasn't working in AI for a really while, and at Jamthe we faced the challenge that the customers who are coming to Jamthe, they have really a wide range of problems. Like some people might look for lawyer, mechanic, or veterinarian. And if you think about that, even within each domain, the number of possible themes and topics just multiplies. And we realized that our funnel is not providing that tailored customer experience. And we try to shift it from just having a page by page experience to something more conversational. That's how we decided to do chatbot. And that's actually how it's all started for me. The first thing I was working on was chatbot application. It wasn't machine learning at that point. We used the chat script, which is an NLP. I don't even know how to tell it. It's like a chatbot engine that has underlying NLP pipelines to help you processing human language. And then we realized that at some point that technology has really high precision but low recall. So if we would find a theme, it would be correct theme, but we will miss what customer is talking about very often. But we had a lot of logs, customer logs, after maybe like 2 years applying this technology. That's when we started looking for other ways, and I was exploring ways of using machine learning to solve this problem. And that's how it started. After we did chats, then we did other things, more and more and more.
Tell us, if you could, a little bit about the schooling, what schooling you had that you really needed to have before you could even consider doing what you're doing now. You have a lot of people, various different backgrounds. Do you need a degree? Are you an engineer? What type of engineer, etc.?
I studied for software engineering and system engineering. That was helpful and really useful to start my career as an engineer. And I thought that would translate pretty much into my experience as a product manager. What I later discovered, that knowing all the technical details about solutions is really great. You can speak common language with engineers and understand them. But I feel like sometimes you might know too much about solution. You probably shouldn't as a product manager. So the one thing that is important to understand how your product works, what the system components and architecture components are there. And you probably don't need a degree to understand those things. But definitely statistics and math and engineering play a role for you to better understand those concepts. You can grasp them easier. In order to move into machine learning, I haven't had any dedicated education, but I did several courses at Stanford, including Sudha course or self-driving cars. At that point, I wasn't planning to move into space, but several courses online, for the most part, understanding just terminology, so you can speak on the right domain language and understand what all the numbers mean and what the approaches are. And there are some really good podcasts I can also recommend maybe at the end. I was listening and still listening, like Emerge AI and others on this topic.
So Vlad, I'm also a student of Sudha. I'm part of the AI ethics course that she's giving. And today we have a lot of students from the NLP course at Business School of AI. It's taught by Sam Wigglesworth from Oxford. So we have all the students from there who is joining in here to hear your experiences. So what do you have to say about moving into NLP in particular?
This is an interesting question. I guess you should understand, and NLP is a wide field, right? Like you can do text translation, I don't know, mining the meaning of the text, do summarization, and do other things that related to NLP. In my particular case, my application was in chatbot development and creating those conversations. That was the my focus area. I think you should be ready to read and read a lot. The thing is that when you have some system, you have some solutions, you might get good numbers, good correlations, or recall whatever numbers you're trying to chase for. But at the end of the day, you will have to read those conversations. You will have to read the text you're working on and what the outputs are to find those extreme cases where your algorithms fail, or understand why something is not going well. There is no way how you can just build a model for something on an algorithm and by looking high level, just be confident that things work. And the same with engineers. Even if engineers claim that we have a really great model and we're really good at recognizing customer intents, maybe 70% accuracy, you better look into that experience. You better understand what it really means from customer perspective and from user perspective, because if you have just a few really large themes and all the other topics are long tail, it would mean that maybe model learned about those two and really cannot understand anything else besides them. And yeah, I would say that that's something that you should be ready for.
So Vlad, could you share some business use cases of NLP, the general business use cases?
Again, as I talked before, with NLP, it means that, anything you would need to process from text, extracting topic of the text, summarizing text, translating text, even understanding intention and sentiment analysis. Those are kind of the possible applications you might think of with NLP.
Okay, that's really nice to know. So Vlad, would you like to share your experience at distances, how you built the chatbot, what NLP technology you leveraged in order to do that?
We started with the chat script. It's really sophisticated chatbot engine. It is open source, so everyone can try yourself. And this engine and bots built with this engine were several times Nobel Prize winners. So this is a competition that does Turing test in front of a real audience, and people try to guess. Whereas when they are talking to machine or to computer, and I think 2 or 3 times for several years, those chatbots were able to fool participants, and people thought they're talking to real humans. It's a really advanced system. What you can do there is creating patterns that will explain the language, like I am expecting this word or something like this, go first, and then maybe this would be a question, and maybe people talk about their dog, or maybe they talk about car, and then based on that, those patterns, you can select reactions. You can also extract parts of the customer message to understand what are the subject they're talking about and so on. This gives you ability to really quickly prototype and develop chatbot experience. We actually, using this technology, build quite advanced and complicated bots that would mimic professional conversation for the most parts, especially in some themes like tech or veterinary. And then by trying to scale that, creating patterns is a quite complicated process, because you might change it a little bit and it will completely, it will have a high magnitude effect on everything that you've been recognizing before. So we thought that using machine learning and using historical chats and conversation that we have can be used to train machine learning model and scale that process to have it less manually human driven and more data driven, leveraging the data that we have. And that's transformed into some form of continuous process where we would take all of the conversations that happened in the past, select of those, only those that ended to the end, so customer did not abandon the flow. And then for those customers who actually posted their questions, so this way we knew that the conversation was going well and everything we said was appropriate. And then we used this information to train machine learning models. Interesting was when we, I will speak about another application, is when we had a really big chatbot that we developed for several years. And it was English-speaking bot. And we were growing really fast in Japan, and we needed the same or similar bot in Japan. And rather than going and recreating entire process from the beginning to the end, we used all of the English conversations, machine translated them to Japanese, train model on that machine translated copy, but all of the responses, we did human translation. So we had really kind of a large-scale training set for Japanese model to learn from. There were some nuances with machine translation, but we knew it won't hurt customer experience because we never exposed any of that information to customer. And then we manually translated all the bots responses. So we knew that the language is the best. And this way, I think it took us not more than 3 weeks to recreate work that was done for several years for English.
That's really nice to know, Vlad. I would like to know.
I'm sorry, could I interrupt there? That is a huge development, isn't it? I mean, wouldn't you? Because I mean, that is really huge to take something that is took years in development, then you were able to recreate in 3 years.
In 3 weeks.
Again?
Recreate in 3 weeks.
A little bit more on that, please.
Okay, so the thing is that Japanese is really rapidly growing market for just answer, along other international markets, but this one was the really big one. And we had no chatbot experience there. So people would still ask questions through question box, just write down everything they think. And we really had no data to train anything using Japanese based on the conversation from Japanese. And at the same time, all of the chatbot that was built with chat script, it is not supporting Japanese that well. Yeah, you can process Japanese text, but there are complications with Japanese NLP modules that it supports and so on. So we had to be creative and think of something. We thought to hire a lot of chat script writers and developers, so they will recreate this experience for Japanese. But the problem there is that they need to be A, chat script writers, B, writers to be able to create content, not only knowing the chat script, but also know Japanese. And that was really high bar to get that talented team into the house. And so we were brainstorming. The way how we usually find first solutions is that, there is no one good option how to solve things. We typically do brainstormings. We go there with some specific agenda. We know the problem area where and the problems we want to solve, and then we speak about them and try to build on top of each other idea. And at some point, there was an idea that we need to translate customer messages and the conversations to Japanese, but it would be really expensive, we realized. And machine translation was not considered as an option because we knew that there are problems with machine translation. We knew that it won't be perfect. It is not match the level. How would you expect the customers meet your website, like a professional website? You should have professional language. And then at some point in these discussions, we just realized that, the translation problem is multidimensional, and there are things that you can translate with machine translation, some that might need human work. So what we did, we have one engineer needed to translate to Japanese, and there was an idea that we need to build a tool. Now we need to build a tool that will do all this translation using Google API. And we started do the cost analysis, how much would it cost, but we still didn't quite knew if that will work or not. And there was someone's idea that, hey, we can just upload a spreadsheet up to 10,000 rows or something to Google Translate, and Google will translate it for you for free. And that's how we did our pilot. We took, a week of conversations or something, just uploaded using user interface into Google Translate, had translated document, trained a really simple linear regression model for intent classification, and plugged it into existing chatbot that was still had English responses, but we could speak to it in Japanese and see if it responds in English and the correct thing. We knew that it works. After we did this MVP, we realized that this is gonna work, and I think we spent like a week and a half on this, and then we spent another week and a half to translate large-scale text, and then do some fine-tuning to the model and translate responses.
So I have just one quick follow-up then in regard to that. We have a saying here, standing on the shoulders of giants. So as I understand it, so Google Translate, Google API, that's one of the things we had there to be able to use that allowed you to do that years-long process in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And we often underestimate the power of the tool that we have available for us. As a product manager, I often leverage Azure. They have ML lab where you can do different no-code experiments with machine learning there. There is a really great really great product. It's not free, Data Robot. I've been lucky to engage with that product for quite some period of time. That gives the ability as a person who doesn't necessarily know how to create those machine learning models and program them, actually go and use user interfaces and your data sets to achieve goals you want. And you know, we were at some point in our development, we realized that using those AutoML tools give us about the same quality of result as a few months of engineering work. Imagine like unbelievable scale of prototyping and a proof of concept you can create, but just using those tools, things that will take you months and months and months and months can typically use a day. The only thing here is that you should make sure you have data. You should make sure you have data. You should understand quality of that data. Do not hesitate to look into that data, review and curate it as needed. And once you have those data sets, there is a lot of tools that can be used, even for non-technical people, to just get a sense if this has lags and, you know, we can do something there. And then with your engineering team, with your partners, you can maybe start using those models that you created in those services as like API, but nothing prevents you then to shift and actually build them and code them and develop in more, you know, cutting the edge state-of-the-art model architectures.
I have to warn you, Sam is here and she has some very educated questions.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you for the beautiful question. And I request all the audience to post your questions in the chat. We will call on you, or you can voice it also. And I want to introduce Sam, who is teaching our NLP course here. So Sam is here, Sam Wigglesworth. And hi, Sam, how are you doing?
Hey, Sam, we cannot hear you.
Sam is doing our NLP course here at Business School of AI, and her students are here to hear Vlad speak about the business case.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hi, Vlad. Nice to meet everybody. Great to be here. And yeah, I think it's fantastic that the fact that you'd be able to cut that time down to 3 weeks with your application. And I'm definitely going to have a look at Data Robot. That would be really interesting to see. I haven't seen that yet. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how do you, I was wondering in terms of like you're measuring the accuracy of your machine learning models, are you using a particular matrix tool? We talk about confusion matrix. Is that something you're utilizing quite a bit? Because we're going to talk about that in our course in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
How do you map out the performance and check your performance against
when we started
true positives, true negatives? Yeah.
Yeah, when we started, we just looked at the accuracy, and then at some point we just realized that it's not something we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Then we moved into precision recall.
Right.
That was much better.
Okay.
But we're still, as a product manager, I like to understand what really happens there, you know. Then using confusion metrics was the last thing that we leveraged. And quickly, you know, in chatbot, it's interesting that, you know, false negatives sometimes is less harmful than, you know, false positives. Like not understanding what customers are saying, it's not good, but you can ask clarifying questions. You can try to escalate to a real human and continue conversation there. There are so many tools you can use that.
Yeah.
But if you think you are right at defining, like you really know what the thing is and you just go for it and your confidence is high and customer at some point is saying, no, that's not something I'm talking about. And you keep going, that's terrible from the customer perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay, understood. Okay. And with precision recall, is that, can you explain a little bit more about that? Is it a particular framework that you use? I haven't utilized that yet, so could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so you can think about every about your intent that you have.
Mm-hmm.
That trying to recognize this intent would have a specific precision and recall.
Yeah.
Precision would be like of your guesses, like you have I don't know, you have 10 different sentences and phrases, and
Yeah.
some of those are about cats, some are about dogs, and you think that I don't know, 20% of these are about cats. So
Yeah.
precision would be to look of these that you think are cats, how many really are?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And recall would be of all of the cats are there, how many did you find?
Okay. So it's honing in on the subset. Okay. Yeah. On a sample corpora of text, specifying which has X numbers has cats, and then the recall is specifically quite accurately saying this is definitely positive. And yeah, okay.
The entire corpus of cats, how many have you identified? Yeah.
Okay.
There are many things, many ways how you can measure your.
Yeah, Vlad, can I just jump in for a minute?
Yeah.
In all, I lost my voice, so I'm trying to not speak today. In all my classes, the confusion matrix is one of my favorite topic to give students, because when any data scientist runs a model, they naturally get the recall and precision. So I just added a link on what is confusion matrix for any new students. But I wanted to, share a English version of how I say this. I love the cat example that you gave. I basically say precision is how often the AI says yes, or the recall is how often the AI says yes. So you take the true positive and true negative, and by all the combination of options, how often it says yes. And then precision is how many times is it correct when it says yes. So that's an English way of just thinking that it is more accurate. In fact, Sam teaches this Live Lab NLP, which is the class that most of the students are here from. And she joins us from Oxford and is kind of a industry expert in NLP space. And she's teaching us this with complete no code. So she gave us a big landscape of variety of no code players out there. And I think she's going to be using IBM Watson NLP for our class. Okay, thank you.
IBM Watson is a great tool. We haven't used it in production, but we explored it, and that was one of the options we considered when we were starting. On the topic of metrics, I would also like to add one thing, is that you will always have several numbers, and you would have different models, different architectures, different ways how you solve the problem. And at some point, it's a challenge to make a trade-off and say, hey, this is better model than this. You might have more true positives in one model, but then another one will have less false negatives and so on. So what the best thing you can do as a person who is trying to or create models or make a judgment call which model is the best is try to come up with a business score that would translate into the value of this model. Like I spoke before, sometimes false positives are more harmful, but there are other cases where it's actually not. Imagine that you have a bot that, I don't know, like hospital intake, and you really need to catch if someone needs emergency help. In this case, false positive is actually okay because you really don't want to miss anyone. And you should think about your business case, think what is the cost of every decision being made, or what is the profit, if you will. It doesn't have to be money necessarily. Of course, the better you can translate into business objective, the best. But sometimes you can just use something like ranking. This is a large positive impact, and let's say large is +50, and this is small negative, it will be -10 or something. So using some scoring mechanism, using some way of translating a set of different metrics into one outcome that would translate what you're trying to achieve is probably the best thing you can do to save a lot of your time on judgment and those conversations to decide where to go and what solution to use.
Thank you, Vlad. And you have mentioned about prototyping, how we can prototype and see what we can do using NLP. Here, Sam is teaching a live lab on NLP with no-code AI. And when you told about prototyping, I was thinking, how can we leverage on no-code AI platforms to prototype and see what is possible, and then do a code version and take into production? So do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I can speak about 2 use cases that were eye-opening for me in terms of how powerful those tools are. At that point, I was working as a product manager for consumer acquisition, and our goal was to increase the number of customers who are visiting our website. But you don't have control over it, because that's Google's decision. If you would rank your website higher than others, and the higher you are in the list, the more chances are there that you will have a customer. You can have paid customers, which is a reasonable way to acquire your users. You can just pay knowing how much ROI you will get out of each visitor. You can also have organic acquisition, or SEO, like when you just have a free content out there, and if the content is good, Google values it, and users search for something relevant, they will stand higher in the search results. So we had at that point 16 million pages. And not all of the pages were getting traffic. In 16 million pages means that we had 16 million questions answered. And that was many years ago. I think we crossed like 20-something million before I left Just Answer. So you have a lot of content, and some content is better than others. Some content is higher quality than others, and you cannot expose all of that content to Google. You can, but Google takes time to crawl everything. You make sure you prioritize higher content quality first, maybe link to those pages more often or higher in the customer funnel. And we had no idea how to prioritize those things. So I pulled all the data that we have on our pages, including the headline of the page, the first paragraph of the page, how many visits it has, which category it is, and different details about it. And I was playing with it in Excel spreadsheet, try to use different ways and formula, presence of some keywords and so on to try to score them. And at some point, I just realized that the volume of data is too big for me to even wrap my head around. And I was only working with a sample of 500,000. And then I just went to Azure, and in 5 minutes trained a model that was able to predict with 40% accuracy what would be the bucket that this page, the traffic will get, like low traffic, medium traffic, or high traffic. 5 minutes. Like I spent before on that, like maybe a week or so, just trying to wrap my head around the problem, and that's unbelievable. And then the second application was when we were working on detecting hard questions. Like but just answer, you have a different sort of questions. Some are easier, some are harder. How can you tell if something is hard? You know, you can use different NLP techniques to understand and score language, complexity, how heavy it is on terms, and so on. But in our case, everything was like that. Everything is full of terms, like in legal, if you will, or medical, is full of problems. Like every sentiment analysis you will do there, it's like a problem negative, you know, and so on. So we're trying to look for different proxies there. And one of the things that we were able to explore and quickly prototype, like I think around 10 or 15 different approaches and models with data robot, using something like the conversation that happened between expert and customer afterwards, and different nuances about that conversation, like how long it was, what was the customer rating, or in terms of timing, how long it takes, to have a proxy to try measure complexity of the topic. Or we also looked at the time even to the first expert response as a proxy, or time to answer and things like that. So imagine you have all of these different hypotheses and different ways how can you categorize question complexity, and then you can try tens of different solutions within just a week or two, and came to the approach that you really like to productize and move forward with. I think that's unbelievable. This is unprecedented time that we are living in, with all the tools becoming available, and for the most part, even being free.
Vlad, that's really nice to know. We have a question from the audience. Rajana is asking, did you use any semantic search algorithms when you created the chatbot?
I personally, our team was not developing that. I know that in chatbot engine, it is used, because you can find like a part of the sentence. Oh, this is a verb. What is the subject of this sentence, and so on. So those techniques were used under the hood. Luckily, we didn't have to implement them ourselves, but yeah, we were using them, especially for variable detection, like, you know, and the topic detection, things like that.
Okay. Vlad, so we have 10 more minutes to go, and I would like the audience to pose any questions that they have. Either you can voice your questions or put your questions in the chat, and I will pose the questions to Vlad. So we have 10 more minutes, and please field your questions here. And Vlad, there was a very important point that you told. When you were doing NLP, you have used even analytics. So you haven't done NLP just like that. You have used the other allied subjects of artificial intelligence, like analytics, data science, and all of that. So could you tell us how we could marry all these subjects and bring out a good product from a business perspective? So ultimately, the customer has to be happy with it. They have to use it. The number of users should be high. And how do you make a product out of using all these subjects?
So I will tell you something first, that your objective should not be just use AI or NLP because you can. Like, there are many problems that perfectly solvable without machine learning, without NLP, without AI. And you should be able to distinguish between those two cases. Developing AI is a research process. It is complicated. It might be lengthy. rewards are not clear, the outcomes are not clear. So you should be sure that this is problem that's worth solving with AI. And then worth solving, it's a good, then you should think if you have enough data to solve this problem with AI, you need to think if you have competence to solve this, and if you have time. And using these three factors, you should decide if this is something that you will go and approach and find alternative solutions. You will do in-house, or you'll try to maybe find a vendor that will do this for you. But don't try to jump into AI solution, because it is iterative research process. It's the same as product development with, like, you know, lean, agile kind of iterative startup workflow. When you try to have a solution and build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. The same you do with machine learning. You never know where it will end. You might have really great successes, and there might be long plateaus. So it's less predictable than conventional engineering. And then if you decided that, if you recognize that this is the problem worth solving with AI or with NLP or with more any data science related tools, try to start with something very simple. Like NLP might be a really, if you're working with text, NLP might be a really good first step just to understand what type of topics you have, what is the, I don't know, it depends on what problem space you have. I can speak about chatbots. We were able to detect like language complexity, writing levels, topics, how broad is the problem space and things like that. The simpler tools you are using, the easier it is for you to interpret them and translate into insights that can be easily understood by leadership. And this is a key point. Like, you know, if you are in the organization that is not using NLP or AI, coming to them and tell that we're gonna now do this machine learning, it's a magic box, it will solve all problems. It's hard to believe, especially if you're dealing with problems for a really long time. Your first solutions probably should not be working products, but just the data that highlights and shows some insights, something that's very easy digestible and easy to interpret, to get those buy-ins for small things. And start with analysis, do simple things first, and then do some small prototypes, and never pick really broad area for AI application. Even if you have customer support experience, for example, and you have a triage process, like, you know, maybe customers answering, pressing buttons or selecting options. Maybe you want to automate one of those use cases. Maybe one of the options leads to conversational experience. Maybe one of the options when you ask customers to give open free form text, because you know that this is solvable problem, you know, you understand how to solve it, and then gradually expand slice after slice, layer after layer.
So we have Tarsisa here who would like to ask a question. He has asked in the chat. Tarsisa, can you voice your question, please?
Yeah. So hello, Vlad. I'd like to know what was the first reaction you got from the users when you started deploying the first versions
Of what?
Of the chatbot. How was the feedback?
So I think I can share this. We didn't know. We didn't know if we can build a bot, because Just Answer is a website. Like, you have I think about 300 different categories where people can ask those questions. Imagine creating chatbot that is good across so many different things and topics. But we already had a funnel, like a multi-page process. And at every page, we were asking just one or two questions, like what is your name? What is your pet's name? What is the pet's age? And so on. So what we did at first, we just created a chatbot where we just asked the same question in a chatbot, even without processing responses, even without trying to understand what customers are talking about. And that simple translation from just page by page to one conversation, less friction, more streamlined, ended up in being a huge driver in customer engagement. The same questions, just in a different form. That's when we realized that there is a power. But of course, when you present conversation this way, it sets particular expectation from the customer side that now they can pivot this conversation to the points they want. And we have seen that, yes, overall engagement was much higher and it directly translated to the revenue gains. But we have seen that also it created customer frustration because now they try to create a dialogue and create a conversation, but no one is responding to them. You know, it's like when you're on the phone talking to the chatbots and you try to say something and they don't get you. That's quite frustrating experience. That's when we realize that, okay, the direction is right, the strategy is right. We should move towards conversational experience. That's what customers want. But they want to be heard. They want bot to be responsive. And we did a project where we just reviewed all the conversation and we measured, like low scale, I think we reviewed like 1,000 conversations. We hired a few students or something help us on this project. Just reading to them and just to qualify if they think that customer was frustrated, if bot was ignoring customer and so on. And we find direct correlation between bot being ignorant to customer questions and the things they want to talk about and the outcome of the final conversation or completing the chat. That's how we started advancing our technology. That's how we started using chat script to start giving some basic things and then advancing it furthermore.
So Emmanuel has a question here. What is your opinion on NLP and dialects, accents, and the way people talk? How do you handle that and how do you cater to the training data with that?
This is a very good question and very hard one. I just answer, you have people who, like, they might be in emergency, you know, maybe their dog is sick, or maybe they are stuck on the street and they're our members. They know that they can come to us and ask questions, experts will help them, give all the support they needed. But they are often on go, they're often in a hurry, and they make a lot of spelling mistakes. They write in own version of English, sometimes a mix English and Spanish, and dialects are there. It of course complicates things. Again, in chat script, in that engine, you are able, first of all, they have libraries of different concepts and idioms and things like that that map together to canonical form. So before processing customer text, we try to normalize it first. And part of this normalization is getting rid of some of the dialogues and synonyms and just simplify the language. You can also build your custom translation and tables. So these things we were doing. It was one of the things that prevented us from translating our content because we just could not do that because all the spelling issues. And things get even more complicated with dialects, as you said. Like for Spanish, there are different dialects, and if you want to serve the Spanish language, like you never know like what the dialect will customer have, and should you build a bot for every dialect, or should you have one for the one the most common used? I don't have answer to that. I don't think we have yet solved those problems.
Thanks, Vlad. Thanks for coming here and answering all our questions. Is the last bit that you want to tell everyone? Is there something that you want to tell, like a mantra or a message?
I'm really excited you try to learn and explore this area. You know, world never will be the same. I decided to move into product and then to AI that's when I thought we are moving as a society. And there would be, like, there are so many problems that world currently has that we might help to solve it with the skill set you're building today, with these opportunities that you have in front of you. Don't stop if things are hard. Things get more easier as you learn more about the domain, and at some point you will reach that point that it really clicks and you get understanding and you can have a good judgment, and then just go with your team and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was really nice. Thanks, Vlad. Thanks for coming here. So we have another 10 minutes in WeeklyWed where we have this opportunities gallery. We tell about opportunities in AI. And I would like to show the catalog of Sudha Jamthe's courses in Business School of AI. I'll just share my screen in a bit.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. So here are the courses that Business School of AI is having in this fall. We have the No-Code AI course with a live lab, machine learning with Julian Carbonell. We have live lab NLP with Sam Wigglesworth, and we have responsible AI masterclass with Renee Cummings and inclusive AI with Susanna Raj. So you can request for the fall catalog at Business School of AI, and we can tell whether it's the right fit for you. What are the nitty-gritties that will be taught in the courses? What are the details that will be catered to? And here are the instructors that we have this time. And it's a wonderful bunch of instructors, and we would like to look forward all of you there. And regarding the opportunities gallery, this time we have related to related to ethical AI, we have related to responsible AI. Pamela Gupta and we were thinking about ethics as a service. So AI ethics is the need of the hour, and how we can provide ethics as a service is something that we were exploring. So if any of you would like to join us and collaborate, it would be very good to talk, and we can discuss and brainstorm as to what we can do about it. So anybody has any other questions about the courses, the NLP course, the No-Code AI course, the AI ethics course, the inclusive AI course? We would like to take your questions.
Yes, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk, but I wanted to add one thing. One of the things that people have been asking me is, I just talk to my students and talk about what I have, and I don't do like official marketing. So I've been trying to send out some emails. So if anybody is getting duplicate emails from me, please get out of one of the lists, because I'm trying to organize those who asked me about NLP versus those who asked about machine learning. And I would create a new one for AI ethics. So if you're in duplicate lists, apologies. And the second thing is, I've added a bit.ly/no-code AI courses, which gives you a list, because people were asking what comes first, what should I take with what, and combination. So we already started the Live Lab NLP course with Sam last week. So apologies for anybody who missed it. I usually have people asking me for information, and then after the class starts, and I think I've announced it 10 times, there are people who come and tell me, how come you didn't tell me? Because I'm sending it in different channels. So we've already started with Sam's class last week. And if you're just new to NLP, just want to learn NLP, she did a webinar before, so that webinar is accessible for free. And if you're already part of the class, you can continue on. But we've come up with a new opportunity because Sam is doing everything we are doing everything as a live lab, which means there is going to be a tool that we will use, a no-code AI tool. And then using that, you're going to learn the topic. So tomorrow is the Live Lab NLP lab with Sam. So what we've come up with is we've come up with a new offer. Instead of, $4.99 for the whole course and people who have signed up, if you are just saying, I just want to learn the hands-on lab and build NLP end-to-end, and then go, on a certificate with it, or like Vlad was saying, use this as a prototype for my startup. And I see some entrepreneurs who have plans around that. You can jump in and just take tomorrow's lab class. And we have like a 24-hour offer to go do that at $2.99, I think. So all that, it will be in the catalog. And then you can, of course, talk to me, because we don't want too many people in the classes. We want it to be small numbers so we can cater to people and do office hours and help you build. Sam, do you want to jump in and say anything more about the class or what to expect tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. So tomorrow's program is really just about you becoming confident in building the tool itself and the cognitive steps that you have to take. So if you look at the curriculum and the to see what's going to be included, that's the first thing. So yeah, how do you apply design thinking to solving the application and problem, and how do you build it from that perspective? And then we're going to look at what we looked at in the Weekly Wednesday, which is the intents and entities, how we build those in, how we build in corporate text to actually start having conversations with the chatbot. And as you know, we also want to look at language translation and how we can build in translation from the ground, from that tool. So we're going to cover quite a lot of that. Okay, and the case study, the business case, is focused around delivering customer support for customer inquiries. And again, we've touched upon this before, but I'm going to go into depth a little bit more on that. Okay, so it's really looking at the back end and where things sit in the back end of the chatbot, and what outputs you get from that as well. And then I'm going to connect it up to a web platform for you to try and work with on web, because there's lots of connectors as well. So that's what we're going to focus on tomorrow. And then obviously, there's about 6 hours of sessions for the whole month that you can tap into and listen to offline. You can do that later. So yeah, that's it.
So tomorrow's lab is 90 minutes, not our usual 1 hour class. It's 90 minutes.
It's a little bit longer. Yeah, it'll take us just over an hour and 30. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not going to be. I'll not go over. We'll try to keep it. Your time to 1 hour 30. Yeah. That's
okay.
Right.
And if somebody's joining tomorrow, do they need to do the pre-class, the IBM Watson setup that you did earlier? Do they need to finish it and come for the class? What's your expectation?
I'd expect them to have a look at that. I want them to be able to get comfortable at logging into the cloud platform, become comfortable with where Watson sits and what Watson looks like, how you can set up the basics. But I'm going to go through some of it tomorrow. So I'd like you to at least try and watch a little bit of that video to get familiar, so that you're not coming in completely cold feet, and you're a little bit more confident. I think that'll help. Yeah, and it's there for you to have a look at. And if you want it on the Weekly Wednesday session, and if you're registered for this already, there's other application videos as well, other business cases for you to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, I just added the link for that. So if somebody is looking at
All right.
they can see. And if they just want to see what the pre-class is, because I had people ask me whether it's very time consuming. I don't have too much time because everybody here is working, or some of them are startups are looking for jobs. So the pre-class is an hour. If you want, you can look at that. That would, and do the walkthrough for at least half an hour of it is the IBM Watson setup, right? Rest of it is more live Q&A with you. So that is something they can do. Otherwise, they can still come prepared. My personal gut is that IBM Watson is kind of not fun to get started, but then it is very powerful. So at least go and create your IBM Watson account, right? Go to the cloud.ibm.com, create a free account. Otherwise, it will send you in multiple places to go create a paid account. That's not what you want. For the purpose of this class, with all no-code AI tools, we don't expect you to go buy anything else and just get started. So people can come in and just sign up just for this class and attend the live lab only if that's all they have time for. And then they will get all the other class as recording, right? So they'll get 6 hours of class recording. So that's the plan.
Yeah. All the live recordings will be ready for you, including the 2 introductory sessions that we've done together as a team. So so again, drop a message to me if you want to ask me any questions. I can drop you my email address here. Okay, so I'll just put my email address in.
Yeah.
And also, you might have already started thinking about designing and building your own NLP tools. If you have that experience and you're in that space, this will solidify a lot of that that learning, and allow you then to go away and start thinking about how you can advance those applications with machine learning and understand and connecting those those tools to other platforms. So yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
And thanks, Vlad. Thanks for this wonderful experience share that you did and the stories that you told us. It really enriched us a lot. And thanks everyone for joining. So WeeklyWed happens every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And see you all at next WeeklyWed.